We're next going to move into the section of the forum where we have our contested House Democratic candidates. The first race we're going to talk about is House District 40. There's two qualified Democratic candidates for that seat, Ms. Sandra Bullock and Mr. Eric Allen. And at this time, only Eric Allen is here. So, Eric, Mr. Allen, we're going to allow you to have 3 minutes for an opening statement, sir.
Thank you very much, Chairman Owens, and thank you all for being here tonight and being engaged. My name is Eric Allen. I'm running for State House District 40. District 40 encompasses Vinings and then sections of North Buckhead, Mableton, and Smyrna. So it's a very, very diverse district. This is the third time I've run for this seat. I ran first in 2014, received 41% of the vote, ran again in 2016, 47% of the vote, and now in 2018, this will be an open seat. The incumbent has retired, and I look forward to clearing the primary and challenging whoever comes out of the Republican primary in November. A little bit about me. I live in the Vinings area with my wife, Tamika, and my 2-year-old daughter, Elise. And we really settled on that community because it's a place where we truly believe everyone is in this together. It is a community where education, family, and really faith are valued. And when I decided to run for this seat, I had just exited being employed by the state of Georgia. By trade, I am a consultant in talent management, particularly in healthcare, and I was working for the Department of Behavioral Health, Development, and Disabilities. As an executive for one of the larger state agencies, I really learned a lot. I learned a lot about how government can be very helpful in making sure that the most vulnerable Georgians get access to the services that they need, and I enjoyed playing a part in that. But I also saw some of the deficiencies and some of the areas where things could be improved. And in doing so, I decided to run for office, and here I am. Now, there are 4 things that I really focus on as I go out and talk to people in my community. I really look at our issues as kind of a stool. And if you look at the stool, it's got 4 legs. And in those legs, the things that we want to make sure that are propping up that stool are quality education, making sure that every child has the ability and has the resources, every teacher has the resources, and every school is well equipped. Also with healthcare, making sure everyone has access to quality, affordable healthcare, making sure that we have mobility. And I use the word mobility very purposely. We talk about transit quite a bit, but with mobility, you want to make sure that people have the ability to live, work, and play where they choose to live, work, and play. And also where employers have the potential to hire people who can be the best fit for their organization, not just the ones who can get to their organization in a timely way. And then lastly, economic security. How do we increase wages? How do we make sure that college is affordable? How do we make sure that students don't leave college burdened with debt? I think those are all things that people talk about at the table. Those are the things that hold up that stool, and those are the reasons why I'm running to represent the 40th District.
Thank you a lot, Mr. Allen. Appreciate that. So we will have time for one question. So you mentioned the district that you live in the area, House District 40, and we know now it is an open seat due to the former state representative retiring. What is the single largest difference that the people in your district would see going from a Republican representative to a Democratic representative, namely yourself, if it was you?
That's a great question. I think one of the biggest differences, and the panel earlier talked about, is really constituent outreach. Being in that community and being someone who was seeking to engage and interact with my elected officials, it can be very frustrating when you have things or issues that you want to bring to bear, but don't have a voice, or you don't have someone to receive the voice. So I think the biggest difference that the district would see is I've made the commitment to hold at least one public event monthly. Now, that doesn't mean a public event on my own, but really partnering with some of the other organizations, some of the civic clubs, some of the business associations, but once a month being visible and being available in the community to hear from the diverse constituency that we have.
Great. Thank you, Representative Allen. Presumed
From
Representative
your lips
Allen.
to God's ear.
All right. So at this point in time, we would like to move to House District 40. I'm sorry, House District 39. Candidates for House District 39 include Mr. Trey Detweiler, Sheila Edwards, State Representative Erica Thomas, and Victoria Randall, who is not here with us today. So as they get seated, I would like to mention that Erica Thomas is the current state representative. She was elected in 2014. Good evening. Thank you for being here and I appreciate it. We're going to start off with opening statements. And to begin with opening statements, we'll go to Ms. Sheila Edwards.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sheila Edwards, and I'm a candidate for the Georgia House of Representatives for District 39, which is comprised of Mableton, Austell, and the Powder Springs areas of South Cobb. My decision to run for this office was made with you, the constituents, in mind, as I have a personal passion for championing issues that impact our quality of life in our community. What we have now is not strong leadership. I feel that strong leadership is needed once again in our community. And unlike the others in the race, I have a background in working in my community, which is reflective in the work that I've been doing, including advocating on zoning issues, working with public safety, and working with local stakeholders to ensure that our voices are heard on issues that impact us the most. A few years ago, I led the successful fight to keep the 39th district from being polluted with tons of trash. I worked with my community to improve public safety and was in this chamber recently to support our news park and to oppose it being named after a Confederate general. I'm strongly committed to democratic values, and I will stand up for public education, unlike the incumbent who voted against teachers and children when she voted to take over the schools. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Georgia Federations of Teachers. In addition, I'm the only candidate in the race that has local, state, and federal government experience. When Congressman David Scott ran for office, I was his district director for his first year in office and worked with constituents on constituent issues. I've worked with Chairman Mike Boyce on his transition committee, bringing together constituents from across the district to work on issues including diversity and inclusiveness in Cobb County government. We need a strong leader who's present and visible in our community and has a record of service and results. I will work hard for you. I will fight for you. I will deliver results for you. Again, my name is Sheila Edwards, and please vote for me for your next representative for the 39th District. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Mr. Deadweiler, please give us your opening statement.
Thank you so much for having us here. So my name is Trey Deadweiler. I'm also running for state. Excuse me. My name is Trey Deadweiler. I'm also running for State House for District 39. I'm a father. I am a neighbor, a friend, a civic strategist, also a servant leadership coach, and a business owner, and a 20-year resident here in Cobb County. During those 20 years, I've actually seen a couple of different things. And like you've seen politicians go throughout this process of ignoring the voices of people, finding ways that they have not been able to actually pushing people away from the political process, and going through and just continuing to just move on their merry way. And I think one of the challenges for us is for having politicians that are almost have us in a terrible relationship, that only come around when they want a vote, when they want a picture, or they want some cash. For over the last 16 years, my work has been in community development, whether it's been working with veterans to help them reintegrate back into society after war, or working in education, doing things from ensuring that truancy wasn't an issue, also having teacher support. Or it's maybe even, or along with that, we were also doing Opportunity Youth, working with Opportunity Youth. Those are individuals between 16 and 24 that are not working, not in school, and figuring out ways that they can actually use service as a solution so they actually be productive citizens within society. My campaign has 3 pillars: connection, community, and commerce. Connection, because I believe every single person in here should have a connection to their elected official, whether it be a text or email, some sort of way that you should know who is representing you no matter where they are. Community. Community is related to civic health. For us, when we think about where we are as a community, when we think about South Cobb, when we think about actually our nation, we continue to be divided and more divided. And so my focus is on civic help, whether that being using service as a solution and identifying community development programs for our area. And commerce. Straightforward economic development is a key for South Cobb. And my focus on not only recruiting businesses for our area, but also workforce development will set us in the right direction. My name is Trey Detweiler. I'm running for State House District 39, and I would ask for permission to be your state representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dweller. And Representative Thomas, your opening statement, please, ma'am.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank everyone out for coming out today. My name is Erica Thomas, and I am the state representative for District 39, which encompasses South Cobb County. When I was first elected in 2014, I was one of the youngest state representatives to be elected in all of America. And 3 years later, which marks last year, only being 3 years as a state rep, I was elected by my peers to the minority vice chair of the House. Which makes me the youngest person in leadership in the Senate and in the House. You know, we have fought really hard for bills like Marcy's Law to pass so that crime victims are able to know when their persecutors and things that have hurt them get out of jail. I co-sponsored HB 906, which allows foster kids to be able to extend foster care to age 21, which will help 15,000 kids in the state of Georgia to get the care that they need in order to be successful. There are top two languages in my district. One is English and the other is Spanish. And Español es importante en mi comunidad. That is why I made sure that during the summer, we had Rep Thomas Summer, where we gave free Spanish classes to people in my district every Monday night at the South Cobb Library, because people need to know about culture. And culture is so important. That is why I started iConnect at Riverside Intermediate School, where kids every other week are able to be virtually in Africa, teaching kids in Africa and learning the culture in Africa as well, because culture is so important in my district. That's why we did Haiti Day, Africa Day, so that people and immigrants know that they are welcome at our state capitol. You know, session is very important. It is. That is what we're elected to do, is to make sure that we pass bills inside of session. But outside of session is important to me as well. That is why we do programs like How to Be a Gentleman, where we teach young boys how to be great men. Free coding classes in the district as well. But let me tell you something that's very important to me. When we found out that it was more police brutality in the state of Georgia, I put my life on the line and went and did ride-alongs in the community with police officers to help to bridge the gap between the community and police. That is why I am the state representative for District 39, and I will continue to fight every single day for my people in the District of 39 in South Cobb County and for Georgians. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Thomas. We'll now go into a round of questions. And the first question deals with something you all touched on a little bit, which was about District 39 and the need of more resources in the district. So the question is, the recession ended several years ago, but according to most people, and most people in District 39, several factors such as household income and purchasing power have not rebounded. What policies would you support to help facilitate wage growth, job opportunities, and upward mobility for the people in the 39th District? Ms. Thomas, we'll start with you.
Well, thank you so much for that question, Mr. Chairman. I think that job growth is very important when it comes to my district. That's why I always make sure that we support small businesses in the district. In our district, we had a Starbucks, which everybody knows in this room that Starbucks makes a lot of money and they have a lot of people come to them every single day. But our Starbucks shut down because our community was not supporting the Starbucks like we could. And that's because of our wages weren't there and we weren't able to financially do that. And so I want to make sure that I'm supporting small businesses so that we can have more restaurants in our district so people don't have to go all the way to Atlanta, waste gas, go all the way to Atlanta when they can support businesses in our community. And the number one thing, the way to do that, and I've talked with Lisa Cupid about that, is to make sure that we can prove to more businesses that we do have the daytime commute, because that's something that we don't have in District 39. We have the nighttime growth, and we patronize restaurants and things at nighttime, but we don't do that during the day. I think that's very important to the district.
Thank you, Representative. Mr. Detweiler, same question. What policies would you support to help facilitate wage growth, job opportunities, and upward mobility to the people of the 39th District?
So in 2008, when the recession happened, I was put in charge and actually develop a program called the Georgia Recovery Corps that was focused on those areas hardest hit by the economic collapse in our state, where we actually focused on retooling and retraining those individuals that had their industries collapse. It was an award-winning program supported by the Department of Community Affairs. You can check it out. It was an awesome program and supported by federal funds as well. Looking at now where we are, I've always been focusing on workforce development. So for me, one of the things I want to do is actually look at increasing the age for the Workforce Innovation Act for the state of Georgia, where we can actually increase and start looking at those families that are a little bit over 24. Where we can actually look at our area and say, hey, how can we drive more people to the high demand areas such as construction, computer programming, practical nursing, and so on. Those are things that I think is going to work for us, and where we can actually increase wages. By increasing wages, we actually have more upward mobility for us.
Thank you, Mr. Detweiler. And the same question to you, Ms. Edwards.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, of course. What policies would you support to help facilitate wage growth, job opportunities, and upward mobility to the people within the 39th District?
Well, I think that wage growth, job growth, and upward mobility are all tied into economic development. And I think it's key to our community in South Cobb, because we have operated with food deserts, banking deserts, housing deserts, every desert that you can imagine. And that's all been under the incumbents' watch. I think it's time for us to work across party lines. I think it's important to work with other stakeholders. I think it's important to make sure that we're having the types of conversations that will bring about the type of policies that we need in our community. My experience on the local, state, and federal government will allow me to do that, because I know how to go to the correct folks, have the types of conversations that we need to have, and to encourage growth in a certain direction. We have operated in a vacuum for so long, and we need to operate outside that vacuum, and we need to work with Commissioner Cupid and work with the other members of the Cobb County Commission to bring about positive growth and development in Cobb County, in South Cobb.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Representative Thomas, Ms. Edwards referenced you in her answer. You have 30 minutes to rebut that statement if you would like.
Thank you so much for that. So, yes, she did reference me, so I will respond. You know, a food desert is true. That is true. That is why this Friday, I am very excited that in Austell, city of Austell, we are going to be supporting a new farmers market in the district. I'm very proud of that. And so supporting Andrew, which is a small business owner that is starting that farmers market so that people in the district can have fresh food, and he will be growing the food on the same campus as that farmers market, and I'm going to support him all the way to the end.
Thank you. So according to the Department of Juvenile Justice, nearly 75% of children in the juvenile jails are non-violent offenders. What, if anything, should the state do to effectively help and rehabilitate these children? Mr. Detweiler, questions to you first, sir.
I appreciate that question. One of the things that is interesting that my background is also in this area as well. We used to run a program at Best Academy, which is actually a little bit south of the district and on the west side of Atlanta, a mentoring program that actually focused on those that were probably at risk of going into this particular system. We focus on mentoring for our area for those young people, as well as tutoring for those students as well. One of the things I would continue to focus, and I think what I'm pushing on, even where we've already started those talks within Cobb, is actually looking at deterrent programs. One where you can actually look at, instead of having a child go to jail, identify ways that they actually you have to look at the root causes of that. Sometimes it's idle hands. And so for me, when I start looking, the program I had that was focused on opportunity youth. Those again, not focusing on, not in school nor working. One of the things I wanted to focus on them is figure out how we can use service as a solution. By that, what I mean by is making service a workforce development tool to actually have them not only be productive citizens, but also now have jobs and be even better.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas, same question to you. What, if anything, should the state of Georgia do to effectively help and rehabilitate these children that are going to prison or going to juvenile for nonviolent offenses?
Well, I love to talk about what I have done. And I think that's so important as far as the future as well. People don't know this statistic, but 80% of the prison population was once in foster care. And this session was a very interesting session that was focused really and truly on foster care and adoption. A lot of you know about the adoption bill that was passed by Representative Burt Reeves, and a lot of you know that I was pushing hard to make sure that we cleaned that bill up so that we can support our foster kids wholly. It's 15,000 foster children in the state of Georgia. So when you talk about juveniles, you're talking about them. And so we have to make sure that we are building policies to help our foster children so that they are not a part of that 80% of the population. So things that we have been doing is going into Covenant House, which a lot of the juveniles that end up in the juvenile system come from the Covenant House. It's a homeless teenage center. And we make sure that we go there, we give them food. I have other representatives that come out and they give them encouragement and mentorship and internships so they know that there is something on the other side and not just the juvenile system.
Thank you, Representative Thomas. Same question to you, Ms. Edwards.
Well, I think it's important that we redirect children who are making mistakes in their lives. And being a proud parent of 2 children who were educated in the Marietta school system, I know how important it is for parents to work within the community and work with community policing to bring about positive changes for not just their own children, but for all children. As the public affairs officer for Paul Howard, Fulton County's district attorney, I worked with him and with Judge Marvin Arrington to bring about a community program where we were redirecting first-time offenders and taking them from out of a system that would put them behind bars and rehabilitating them and putting them through Judge Arrington's program to bring about some positive changes in their life. And some of the kids went through the program successfully and some didn't. But we have to create the opportunities for them to be able to make some different changes and different decisions in their life. And because they're youthful offenders, we need to make sure that we're doing the positive things that we can each and every time for our children.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. As a resident of District 39 myself, I want to stay with this line of questioning because schools, students, and violence is something that constantly comes up. So one fact that I found was that students that drop out of high school are 3 times more likely to be incarcerated than their other school peers. What can the state do, and I mean policy and legislation specifically, do you feel, if anything, can reduce the flow of students from the school to prison pipeline? Ms. Thomas, you first.
I'm so happy that you brought that up. One of the first bills I ever introduced was to raise the dropout age. I wanted to raise it to 17. The dropout age now is 16, and a lot of kids are dropping out before they even know that they have a chance to be able to graduate. They're making decisions that they shouldn't be making at the age of 16. And we fought really, really hard for that bill. And there's a fiscal note on that bill. It's over millions of dollars. And you would think, why is there a fiscal note? Because the Georgia school system does not factor in money for the kids that they believe are going to drop out. So that system is failing us because you are only factoring in a certain amount of money, saying that these kids, we know they're going to drop out. So let's just let them drop out and not even give them the resources that they need. That's why it's so important that this year I voted and we made sure that we fully funded education. And I believe that, and I know that in 2016, Cobb County schools are going to get over $10 million because of that vote for fully funded education. And I believe that we have the money to support those kids from dropping out.
Thank you, Representative Thomas. Mr. Deadweiler, same question to you. What can the state do in speaking specific policy or legislation, if anything, to reduce the flow of students from the school to prison pipeline?
So there's a couple things. So my background is in community development. So I think about things in a theory of change type of mode. When I look at what are the root causes and then looking at what the outcome is going to be. And when you actually look at those numbers, you start to look at where their families were. And many of the families that they're coming from are actually impoverished. And so when I talk about workforce development and I talk about economic development, it is so extremely critical. It is a catalyst for everything. And so when we look at these things, that's where I want to focus on. Again, looking at how we actually boost wages within our families, so they actually can be even more involved. If you being even more involved in schools, if we help doing that, having more impact from that particular perspective, and then actually having additional supports. I'm also looking at thinking about a statewide AmeriCorps program where, again, service can be a solution, where we can actually have those that are actually that are not working or that are looking at trying to figure out where they're going to be in the education system, and actually have them involved in being involved in community and have them all of a sudden find a particular purpose for where they want to be and who they want to be in life.
Thank you, Mr. Deadweiler. Ms. Edwards, same question to you, ma'am.
Well, upon being elected, I will make an appointment to meet with the governor and to bring along Chairman Boyce and the rest of the Cobb County Commission to figure out how we can collectively come up with a solution to reduce the school-to-prison ratio. I would also look at trying to fund initiatives that starts at an early age and that targets not just the students, but the parents as well. Because we all know that many of the students that are committing crimes are absentee or they're consisting of absentee parents, and they don't have someone that's at home watching their every move. So I would like to create some types of diversion programs that would cover all of these issues and would work with everyone across the board, all stakeholders, from our top elected officials in government down to the parents that are working 2 and 3 jobs, trying to make sure that they can take care of their families and not necessarily being the parent that they need to be to keep the kids out of trouble.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. And the last question along these lines, and Representative Thomas has already addressed it, so I'll go to you two really quick just for a yes or no answer. And that question was, Georgia students can drop out of school today at age 16, as Representative Thomas mentioned, yet at that age, they cannot vote, cannot drink alcohol, or enlist in the military. Do you believe that the dropout age should be raised? And Representative Thomas, I'm correct that you said yes. Correct.
Yes.
Mr. Deadweiler?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Yes. All yeses there. We're good to go.
Great business.
All right, so the next question. There's lots of talk about the Hope Scholarship lately, particularly with this election cycle, but the cost of colleges continues to rise. Do you support legislation that sets tuition rate limits or limits to incremental increases at public universities in Georgia? Why or why not? Ms. Edwards.
I do support legislation that would limit the funds or the funding that's required to attend college. I know that there's two types of opportunities for students to attend college through the Hope Scholarship and the Hope Grant, which is really directed at students that really people of color that are not able to qualify for the Hope Scholarship. So that we're looking at all kinds of ways to be able to bring about positive opportunities for these students. So yes, I would support that.
Thank you. Mr. Tedwaller, same question to you, sir.
So we know that, especially within my generation, that we are weighed down by debt from our college years. And so one of the things I'm looking at, I think, yes, we would probably, I would probably be okay with or vote for a rate freeze when it comes down to tuition costs. But I also would look at opportunities where we can actually look at, should they be going to four-year institutions or looking at some of our two-year schools as well. There is a technical college 30 minutes away from every Georgian in this state. Keep that in mind. And many of their programs are actually free. But we can actually, and again, some of the hot button areas, again, practical nursing, computer programming, construction, welding, areas that you probably don't think about, but these are actually high wage areas that we can actually look at. So not only would I look at holding that rate steady, but also identifying ways where we don't even have to worry about that because we actually have state funded and free tuition at our technical college where we can actually look at boosting our industries there as well.
Thank you, Mr. Deadweiler. And Representative Thomas, the same question to you. Do you or would you support legislation that sets tuition rates or limits tuition increases at public universities? Why or why not?
Yes, I would definitely support that. And you know what? I would take it even a step further. When you look at countries like Norway, France, Germany, Sweden, countries that are one of the top countries when it comes to education, and they offer free college. I would like to see our legislator in the future make college or even community college free for our kids because they deserve it. We want to see them be successful, but we have to give them the tools to be successful as well. And I believe that free community college in the least bit would do that for our students.
Thank you, Representative Thomas. What efforts do you support to help Georgians with the problem of rising healthcare costs? Please include efforts specifically that you would like to include at the state level. Ms. Edwards, take this question first, please.
Okay. Repeat that question one more time, please.
Sure. What efforts do you support to help Georgians with the rising cost of healthcare?
Well, as I shared with you earlier, I worked with Congressman David Scott as his first district director. And one of the things that I know, and many of you know, that the best healthcare system is the one that Congress gets. And I would work towards trying to make sure that we're getting the same types of healthcare offerings that they're providing for our elected officials on that level. I think that we went through the dynamics of Obamacare. We went through the dynamics of repealing Obamacare. And right now, that's not an issue for our elected officials because they're not talking about it. But healthcare continues to be an issue for our community. I spoke with someone last night who had to pay $25,000 to have a surgery that his healthcare would not cover. And that's a problem. And again, when we can give our elected officials the best healthcare possible, we should be trying to do the same thing for the common person. And that's one of the things that I will work on when I'm elected.
Thank you. Representative Thomas, same question.
So I want to address that as I am an elected official and I am not offered the best health care myself. We get paid about $17,000 a year, and I would say the lump sum of that check goes towards my health care. And so I want to make sure that I make that correct. And also, with that being said, supporting Medicaid expansion is very, very important. That is why I supported HB 669, which is Medicaid expansion. And because we live in a red state, we could not get the Republicans to even hear the bill in committee. And that is ridiculous. We need to make sure that we are putting our people first. Over 200,000 people in Georgia cannot afford health care. We are the #1 state to do business, but we are number 46 when it comes to health care. That is why I fight every single day and will continue to fight for HB 669. Write that down, y'all. HB 669, which would help Medicaid expansion in Georgia.
Thank you, Representative Thomas. Mr. Deadwaller, same question to you, sir.
One more time,
Sure.
if you could, please.
What efforts would you do to help Georgians with the problem of rising healthcare costs? Please include what specific efforts you would take at the state level.
So the first thing I would do is actually make sure that we accept the federal money to expand Medicaid. I think that is absolutely necessary, and it will help to provide health care for a great deal of Georgians as well. I think once we do that, I'll also look at looking at freezing or renegotiating our rates, our costs for health care that we already have in place, as well. But also, I was thinking about this before and looking at having some unorthodox groupings for rates. So many of y'all know if you are working within a company, a broker would come in and actually support based upon you all's health assessment as a whole. You have a particular group rate assessed. If you expand that to not necessarily just being employee-based or employer-based, and actually, let's say, a neighborhood or a district or a city, then what happens there? Maybe that's an opportunity to look at a different way of negotiating a rate for our healthcare providers that has not been tried.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so the last question I want to give you guys this evening is one I don't think we can get away without talking about being the South Cobb and what's just gone through with the last session. State Representative Anulowicz brought up earlier, and that is with House Bill 930. So this past session, House Bill 930 was signed into law, which creates a state-level Atlanta Regional Transit Link Authority. As it relates to Cobb County, there's still things that need to be sorted out before the bill would take place in any type of transportation services would affect people in Cobb. My question specifically is, do you support the passage of the bill? Do you support the expansion of mass transit in South Cobb, and particularly House District 39? And how would you go about supporting that measure or fighting the measure if you were against it? Representative Thomas, questions to you first, ma'am.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to definitely commend my colleague, which is in the office, in the audience, Representative Anulowicz, because she was very key in helping us fight the legislation. It was funny because you could have seen us running back and forth to the chairman of transportation, yelling at him about what's going to happen for South Cobb. And I really commend her because she was on my side, yelling right beside me, even though she doesn't even have South Cobb. So I definitely, hats off to you. Thank you so much, Representative Anulowicz. We fought really, really hard with that bill. One day it looked like something, South Cobb was inside the bill, and the next day South Cobb was outside the bill. One day we had District 1, one day we didn't. But in the end, we wanted to make sure that we know this is a governance bill, but we wanted to make sure that our people, before we put a 30-year tax on our people, that they knew what was going to happen with their money. And that was so important to me because a lot of the time, South Cobb gets the brunt and East Cobb and other parts of Cobb get the best. And I made sure that we were going to get what we deserved if we were going to be in that bill. And so, yes, I did vote for HB 930, and I do believe in the future we will have a conducive of Cobb delegation to make sure that we get what we need in South Cobb.
Thank you, Representative Thomas. And to be clear on that, you did vote for the bill, and you are an advocate for
transit. Oh, yes. We
Thank
need
you.
transit in South Cobb.
Thank you. Mr. Deadwaller, same question to you, sir.
I do believe that we need, yes, and I do believe that we need, and I appreciate the expansion of the ATL into, hopefully in South Cobb. The way the bill is actually set right now, it actually is going to go to the ballot. Here's the thing that I'm always concerned about when we put things on the ballot, because we know those individuals, the way our system is right now, the way society is right now, those that actually will probably vote against the bill are those that are actually causing the traffic. Those that actually want the transit will probably have the least amount of voter turnout. So I'm always concerned about how we actually pitch these bills, knowing how society works right now. And so, yes, I'm an advocate for it, but I think what we need to make sure happens is that we have on May 22nd, that we have people come out that actually are going to use the transit to actually come out and vote for it. Simple as that.
Thank you. Ms. Edwards, same question for you.
Repeat the
Would you like me to repeat the question, ma'am? The question boils down to the passage of House Bill 930, which creates a transit authority that could potentially be used to expand mass transit into Cobb County. Are you a supporter of that measure or not? And if so, would you be an advocate for that bill?
I am in support of that bill, and I've been in the meetings and have been a part of the discussions that have led to this point. And I've looked around the room when I've been in those meetings, and I've not seen the elected officials that are now claiming to have led on those issues. We definitely need mass transit in South Cobb. We've got a major employer, Six Flags over Georgia, and you have someone who has jobs, but you don't have an ability to get people to and from those jobs. We have other development that's going on in South Cobb. Again, we don't have a way to get people back and forth. We don't have a way to get people to downtown. We don't have a way to get people to the airport. So this conversation is long overdue. And we turn around and look at the history of this and why mass transit is not in Cobb. And it's based on racial issues. But for us in South Cobb, we have a diverse community, and that diverse community is begging for some type of transportation so people could get back and forth. Everyone doesn't have a car. Everyone doesn't have funds for a taxi. Everyone doesn't have a best friend that can give them a ride. So yeah, I will definitely be supportive of all transit issues when it comes to South Cobb.
Thank you, Ms.
Making sure that we
Edwards.
get our fair share
I do
of the
appreciate it.
dollars associated with that.
And I may be mistaken, but I do believe you made an indirect reference to Representative Thomas for not being in certain meetings or
I said
absent of some
elected
meetings.
officials.
So I'm going to respond to that. So about those meetings, we have had several meetings about HB 930, which were held at the Capitol, and they were open to the public. I can attest that I was at every single meeting, and Representative Anulowicz is here, and she was at every single meeting. And we did open to the public, the news, anybody that wanted to come could have came, and I was there. And not only was I there, I was not a sitting duck. I was voicing my opinion and how important it is that we have transit in my district. Not one meeting was I quiet or idle. I made sure that they knew that if they were going to bring transit to Cobb County, it was not just going to be Cumberland, it was going to be South Cobb. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Thomas.
Excuse me, Michael. Can I say one thing? The meetings that I was talking about are the meetings that are held here in Cobb County with our local elected officials, Chairman Boyce, Lisa Cupid, those types of elected officials.
I'm a state
that are here-
representative.
that
I'm a
are-
state
that are
representative.
here-
Please,
that are
so
here.
to understand correctly, you were talking about
I'm a
county
local.
I was
meetings.
talking about the elected officials that have been holding meetings on a consistent basis and where our so-called elected officials on the state level has not been present at those meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. At this point in time, we'll go into closing statements. Representative Thomas, if you could please lead us toward the closing statements, which will be 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was a really great debate. It was very rigid, and it pointed out a lot of points. That legislation is the key, and lawmaking is the key to being a state representative. You know, if you want to be a local representative, if you want to be a mayor, if you want to be a HOA president, then you run for those things. But if you want to make laws and if you want to be a lawmaker, then you run for state representative and you fight for your district every single day. And that is what I do down at the Capitol for 40-day session, and outside of the Capitol, I fight every single day for my people. And that is why on May 22nd, we will be successful, but with your votes, I will soon be reelected to be your state representative of District 39, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Representative Thomas. Mr. Deadweiler, your closing statement, please, sir.
Thank you guys so much for having us here today, and I appreciate the feedback and the questions more so. I think one of the key things for every state representative is that they have to be representing the district, and it's extremely difficult to do that when no one knows you, they have not seen you, and you are incognito when it comes down to being in community. So, when we talk about being a representative, how are you going to be a representative when you don't know the people's voice, you don't know their priorities, and you don't know their values? I'm asking for permission to represent South Cobb, Austell, Powder Springs, Smyrna, and Mableton. I'm asking for permission to be your representative, to serve you, not myself, but you. My name is Trey Deadweiler, and I'm running for State House, District 39. Thank you.
But they know you.
Thank you, Mr. Deadweiler. And Ms. Sheila Edwards.
Thank you so much for hosting us this evening, Michael. I believe that your state legislator is a 365 days a year job, unlike the incumbent who has been largely absent from the community and who has reportedly missed 280 votes in her short time in office. I believe that we need strong representation in our community, and one time we did have that representation, but we no longer do. In order for us to get back to the business of our community instead of the business of people's personal issues, we need to elect someone who's going to be a leader in our community and who's going to fight for our community and who's going to deliver for our community. Again, my name is Sheila Edwards. Please visit my website, www.electssheilaedwards, SHELIA, and I thank you for your consideration and I thank you for your support.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for stepping up. Thank you for running for office. Good luck on May 22nd.
Thank you.
Keeping it clean.